The James Show Podcast.
No peace in Iran yet. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Welcome to The James Show. And that's what we're starting with today. Now, if you haven't been listening to WBAP all day, look, I don't blame you if you were busy this weekend. Let me go ahead and get you caught up since last we had a chat on Friday on The James Show. Because when I left you, I was playing you J.D. Vance as he was leaving to go to Islamabad. I was playing you the media as they were setting up their expectations. And then let's just pick it up on Saturday, the narrative right there. Now, technically, this is Sunday in Islamabad, but we are something like 11, 12 hours behind. So it was still Saturday. For us, J.D. Vance came out and local time, like 12:45 at night in Islamabad, and gave a statement.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
So then we move into Sunday morning futures on Fox News, or is that Fox Business? It was Maria Bartiromo, and she goes back and forth. I think Sunday morning futures is Fox News. But we pick it up there on a Sunday morning, our time, current time. Maria Bartiromo was asking Donald Trump about the whole Iran situation. Sounds like it didn't go so well. What's next?
We were having good discussions, and they go to the press. They're very good with public relations, much better with public relations than they are at fighting. They go to the press, and they say, President Trump said it's okay for us to have a nuclear weapon, when I never even spoke to him. And by the way, that would be the only thing I would never say to them. And they know that. Right. And then the New York Times, which is a fake paper. It's just a fake. You just believe the opposite. It's so sad when you look at CNN, the New York Times, ABC fake news, NBC fake news. When you look at this stuff, it's so sad to see it. I mean, they report things that they know are false. It's almost treasonous, actually, if you want to really know the truth. It's almost treasonous. But if you're reading the New York Times exclusively and their circulation, by the way, is way down. Yeah. It's way down. I'm proud to report that. But if you're reading the New York Times exclusively, you would say that they are doing great in the war.
All right. So he took a shot at the New York Times there at the end. You know, that criticism is only half correct. Yes, the New York Times circulation is dwindling, but so is every newspaper on planet Earth. We now have the internet. We now have our phones. We now have Twitter. All newspapers are dying. Yes, they do stink. Yes, they're horribly biased. So you're correct on that part. But it was almost like he was trying to redirect the attention. Well, Maria Bartiromo brings it back to the one thing that you and I both know, even though we're not geopolitical experts. Well, the number one question after that, peace talks failed. What's going on with the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, we're going to be blockading. It'll take a little while, but it'll be effective pretty soon. And we had meetings yesterday. They, as you said, lasted 21 hours. That was a long meeting. We had some very, very good representatives, as you know, J.D. and Steve and Jared. So we were well represented, but we didn't get there on the important issue. They want to have nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons. I've been saying that for 30 years. I would never allow that to happen before I was in politics. And that country will not have nuclear weapons. Most countries shouldn't be allowed to have, but that country will not have nuclear weapons.
So this is interesting because I have heard this from so many people like you. If Iran doesn't have a navy, how are they blocking the Straits of Hormuz? And I asked my guests that know more things about geopolitical affairs. And the answer is they don't even have to sink one boat. If the threat is out there loud enough and the insurance company, Lloyd's of London, believes it, they won't offer the insurance. And so no one's going to risk $1 billion worth of boat and cargo going through if they can't get it insured. So it's almost like the filibuster. They don't actually have to have the ability to sink ships. They don't even have to sink a ship. They just have to make people think that maybe they could, or this one company think maybe they could. And the other question comes with that. Well, if they're scared about going through, can't we just Navy escort them through? And if Iran runs some boats out there, just blow them out of the water. If we have such military superiority, let's just run some boats through there. Let's run our boats through there. And they don't want them to go through. And when a boat or an unmanned drone or whatever pops out, knock it down. So Trump made a tweet. Technically, it was on Truth Social, but this is what we call things now. Maria Bartiromo is going to read this tweet back to him and get his response.
Mr. President, you wrote on Truth Social this morning saying that we will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. And at some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in and all being allowed to go out basis. Right. So tell us what you're trying to accomplish with this blockade,
all in,
sir.
All out. Yep. It's called all in and all out. There'll be a time when we'll have them all come in and all come out. But it won't be a percentage. It won't be a friend of yours like a country that's your ally or a country that's your friend. It's all or nothing. And that'll be that won't be in too long a distance. No, we're just bringing the ships up. We got a lot of ships, so we're bringing them up. We think that numerous countries are going to be helping us with this also. But we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like and not people that they don't like or whatever it is. It's going to be all or none, and that's the way it is.
And while Maria Bartiromo is definitely someone on Team Red, she still asks the legit questions. What are we going to do about all these mines? Do we have minesweepers? What about their Minecraft? Man, it feels weird to say that because Minesweeper is an old video game. Minecraft's an old video game, but here we are.
How will the United States ensure that the mines are removed in the Strait of Hormuz?
So we have minesweepers there now. We have highly sophisticated underwater minesweepers, which are the latest and the greatest, but we're also bringing in more traditional minesweepers. And so I understand is the UK and a couple of other countries are sending minesweepers. A lot of countries don't have minesweepers. Think of it. They had 28 mine droppers. What country has 28 mine droppers? 28 boats to drop mines. What country? They've been completely obliterated. They no longer. So we knocked out their entire Navy. They have 158 ships. They have 28 mine droppers. Every single one of them is at the bottom of the sea. Can you believe it? We did that in 4 days.
My first guest is going to help us with a little more veteran experience than yours truly here, who has absolutely 0 hours, 0 days, and 0 seconds, 0 minutes of veteran experience. Grant Newsom's coming back on. And Grant, I know, hang on, let him calm down. He's a retired U.S. Marine officer, decades of experience in the sort of region over there. So peace talks break down. Now what?
Well, now what you're seeing the Americans do is they're now going after the money. The regime needs money to survive. It gets it from selling oil. And amazingly, it's been selling oil since the war started. And finally, with this blockade, they're going to go after that money flow. Also, they've taken 2 weeks to allow particularly the air wing, the pilots, to get some rest, to get maintenance done on their aircraft, to restock their weaponry. So they're ready to go again. So we just might see a combination of both an effort to choke off the flow of cash to the Iranian regime, but also, if necessary, to hit them pretty hard militarily. There's still thousands of military targets left, and they can also go after the dual-use targets as well, the transport system, the electricity, etc., that the regime uses to stay afloat.
So do they have the ability to restock without outside help?
The Iranians do not. And they get a lot of help from the Chinese. The Chinese would like to give them more. The Russians are helpful as well, but they don't have the ability to make up what they've lost. If the ceasefire continues, and we do allow, for example, the Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans in particular to resupply, restock the Iranian regime, well, that would be our own fault for letting them do that, because they certainly will try, given the opportunity.
Well, Grant Newsom, doesn't this have a similar effect as occupying Karg Island? You know, because the whole point of that was to keep them from getting oil out of the country. But if we block the Straits of Hormuz ourselves, same thing, right?
It gives you a little more control in the sense that if you hit the facilities at Karg Island, it would take you some time to repair them and to get them back online. But by blocking off the ships that come in, that go into or come out of the Iranian ports, so it gives you more flexibility than actually something like an attack on Karg, one way or the other. But you're right. What you're doing is you're getting at the only thing the Iranian regime has that anybody wants to buy, and that's oil. And that is what has kept the regime afloat. They're quite happy to shoot any number of their own people, but when they don't have cash to pay their militia, to pay the Revolutionary Guards, at that point a regime starts to teeter. And I'm surprised the Americans didn't do this sooner, but now we seem to be getting around to it.
We're talking with Grant Newsham, retired Marine, now with the Center for Security Policy. The Pope has spoke out in criticism of the war. Do you think that has much of an effect? Because it's been my observation the Pope always speaks out against any war at any time.
I don't think it has much effect. And the Pope, this one and a few of the others, have pretty much been from that leftist Latin American school of liberation theology. They're pretty much anti-American, anti-West. And, it's odd to say, but I wasn't surprised to hear the Pope saying this. It's not that war's bad. It's ones that the Americans are in that are particularly bad from his perspective.
Well, that's a good point as well. Well, Grant Newsham, Donald Trump said the sticking points are the uranium. You expect us to ever get it from these guys, or are we just going to have to keep killing people until we find the ones that do?
I think probably the latter. I can't imagine this regime would give up their nuclear capability or the things that they have going to try to get them nuclear weapons. The nature of this regime cannot be overlooked. You might get lucky and you might find this elusive moderate Iranian who wants to change the country. But this regime is a nasty regime. And as noted, it just shot 40,000 of its own people just because they wanted a sort of an honest government. So I don't know how you're actually going to negotiate and get what we want. I think it's going to take choking off the money and hitting them again very hard militarily, and not just purely military targets, but go after the dual use infrastructure, as I said, the electricity, the transportation, the water networks, and blockade the land borders as well. And also go after the bank accounts that the regime has here and there over the world. Don't just identify it, but actually take it. So it has to be in full court press against them. And then I think you might get somebody who says no mas, who says this is enough, we'll cut a deal. But if it's just with what's been done so far, I'm not sure that will be enough.
Yeah, and I doubt the negotiations would be in Spanish, Grant. Just throwing that out.
Probably not. Unless
right.
Roberto de Duran's there. But,
real quick, one more question before I get out of here, Grant Newsham. Donald Trump told China that if they're worried about getting their oil out of the region now that we blocked the Straits of Hormuz, you can buy it from Venezuela.
As far as China is concerned, China can send their ships to us. China can send their ships to Venezuela. We told them, buy from Venezuela. We have a lot of overcapacity.
So is that a funny thing to say, or is that a legit alternative?
It definitely is legitimate. And America's got a ton of oil, a ton of energy as well. And we have the potential to reorder the world energy markets. So instead of having to deal with this nasty, sort of unsettled place in the Persian Gulf in the Middle East, well, you can come to the Western Hemisphere, come to the Gulf of America, come to Venezuela. There's a lot of energy to be had. And I think the Asians in particular, who buy a ton of energy from the Middle East, I think they would be interested in buying it from us or our friends rather than sort of having to deal with the Iranians, the Iraqis, and others.
All right, Grant Newsham, tell them about the Center for Security Policy.
It's a conservative, but it's an honest think tank that looks at world affairs, domestic affairs as well, and makes recommendations about how to make things better. And it also tries to inform people. But it is, as I said, it's honest. The facts take us where they take us, and we don't have a predisposed outcome that we're trying to get.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your expertise, and I appreciate your help throughout the war, Grant.
No, pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
All right, Grant Newsham, Center for Security Policy, Marine. Let's talk about the sticking point here, because the Iran war talks failed over the weekend, and we're told the sticking point is the uranium. That's going to be a tough one. What happens if they don't give it up? Do we send boots on the ground to go get it? Is it enough to find out where it's at? And if we can't bomb it from the sky, just bomb the entrances to the secret facility and just bury it under a mountain, never to be confirmed? That doesn't sound that sounds a little open-ended. Doesn't sound like there's a lot of finality, a lot of closure in that. So in this, Donald Trump came out and he gave a statement with some sweet-looking old lady. It was some cancer initiative. And then when he took questions from the media, of course, immediately they didn't want to ask about what he wanted to talk about. They wanted to ask him about the Iran war. So a couple of clips from that. And this happened right before the James Show started today.
Mr. President, are another round of talks planned with Iran? And if so, will you send Vice President J.D. Vance with?
Well, he's done a good job, and Steve and Jared, they've all done a very good job. And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
What was the sticking point over? You said it was over nuclear.
It was over nuclear, very similar, yeah, very good. I guess you're listening. It's over the fact that they will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal. There'll never be a deal. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and we're going to get the dust back. We'll get it back either. We'll get it back from them or we'll take it.
Yeah, at the very end there, he said we're going to get the dust back. So there's uranium dust, which I haven't heard that term being used outside of actually when you talk about the centrifuge process, the enriching process. But apparently he's been having a bunch of conversations about that, about the nuance of enriching weapons grade uranium. And so some of that terminology slipped out. So you can tell he's been doing a little bit of homework there. But I think the message from this weekend is I guess we just haven't killed enough guys. I guess we're still dealing with guys that are dressed like Jedis and not guys that dress like they've just got out of Zara or Old Navy or Gap or whatever. I mean, I hate to be that simple, but it kind of is. Like, you can almost tell by looking at him. What's he wearing? Is he wearing his suit and tie, or is he dressed like Obi-Wan Kenobi? Because if it's an Obi-Wan Kenobi leader, I don't think we're there yet. Just look, until we get a guy who's wearing, maybe he doesn't have to be in an American Eagle jeans from the Sydney Sweeney ad. Just normal pants would be nice. And until then, just keep doing that. Donald Trump was asked about the criticism from the Pope over the weekend. Now, this is kind of a touchy subject because, look, I'm not Catholic. Chances are you're not Catholic, and that's okay. But about 30% of the voting public is Catholic. So it's hard to say that this doesn't have any effect. And I have to be careful with myself because I easily dismiss what the Pope says. I'm Protestant, always been Protestant. We've never cared what the Pope says. Why do you care what some guy in Italy in a funny hat is saying about your faith? That's between you and God. If you have any questions, you can go open this thing called the Bible. We don't need anybody to intercede for us. I think Jesus was very specific about it. So the whole process seems a little counterintuitive to what we were taught. However, not everybody thinks like me. So I have to remind myself what the Pope says does matter, even if I can be a little too dismissive of it at times. So here's Trump taking a question about that.
He now says you owe Pope Leo an apology. Will you apologize?
No, I don't, because Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result. You have hundreds of millions of people dead, and it's not going to happen. So I can't. I think he's very weak on crime and other things. So I'm not. I mean, he went public. I'm just responding to Pope Leo. And his brother is a big MAGA person, and he's a great guy, Louis. And I said I like Louis better than I like the Pope. Now, you have to have law and order in our country, and that's what we have now. We have the lowest crime numbers we've had in a long time, despite the fact that many criminals were allowed into our country, but we've gotten a lot of them out. We've done a great job on crime. So we have the lowest murder rate in 125 years, since 1900, the lowest murder rate. So we believe strongly in law and order, and he seemed to have a problem with that. So there's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong.
So I appreciate the boldness of that statement. No, the Pope's wrong. Who are you to say the Pope's wrong? A Protestant. That's who I am to say the Pope's. I'm not beholden to whatever this guy says. So I like that, but I also like the part he brought up, because I haven't thought of this, but as a talk radio host, this is a good angle, Trump. Your instincts are great. As far as that goes, you want to talk about, the mayhem and the death and destruction that war causes all over the world and criticize Trump for that. Well, how about some credit for the lowest murder rate in America since 1900? And that's when we started keeping stats. So it's pretty much, it may be the lowest murder rate in American history. How about some praise for that? How many more lives have been saved because this guy did the occupation by the National Guard in some of the worst metropolitan areas we had for big chunks of last year? How many lives were saved because of that? Like, how much did the murder rate come down? How much did the actual nominal number of murders come down? It was by the thousands. Thousands of lives have been saved, far more than the American lives we lost in this campaign. Not saying that justifies the Iran war, but if you're only criticizing the bad things he does and ignoring the good things he does, well, then you're not really that honest of a broker there, are you? So that seems to be the field that we're left with. My next guest, James Varney, with Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Investigations. Welcome back on, sir. So we have this new thing going on where Iran said they're blockading the Straits of Hormuz, and it said, no, you can't blockade it because we already blockaded it first. So I guess we have a double blockade going on now.
Yeah, it seems bizarre, doesn't it? And, it's hard to figure how Iran really has the capabilities militarily to do this. And I think that one of the big issues that people don't talk about because they just want to give Iran the credit is it's the insurers.
Yes.
So they just don't want to take the risk. And consequently, the shipping companies and the tankers are sitting there. Now, Iran probably could harass them. I don't know how many mines they might have put in there, but I do think that the fact that the insurance is really a big sticking point here that people seem to forget about. And of course, the other thing is that, as Trump has said many times, this isn't our energy source that's in this bottleneck. So you would like to see, I think, a little more, I'm not saying they have to start bombing people, but at least a little more forceful effort on the part of these countries that are dependent on this to try and open them up.
Do we care about the Pope's criticism? I mean, I'm very dismissive of it, but I'm a narrow-minded Protestant, and I forget that there are a lot of people who factor into what he says. But do you think that's going to hurt him in the polls or in the midterms, or is that just par for the course?
I think that Trump, look, if you and I were in the cabinet or whatever, or if we were in Trump's inner circle, don't you think we would be telling him, can you please just dial it back on Truth Social and Twitter? Like, why are you going off on this stuff and opening the door for critics? Even if you're right, it's like, what's the point? It looks to me like the Pope is talking about just religion, right? Like, it's Jesus Christ and we want to be peacemakers. But if you're going to stick your oar into a situation like this, you got to expect some blowback. I'm not Catholic either, so I can't really get a read on if this Pope is closer to the last Pope or a little more like Pope, what was it, Benedict or John Paul II. I think he's probably more liberal. He comes from Chicago, right? And he's a Sox fan. I guess that means he can't be all bad. But I think that they're coming at it from two different places. And from a political standpoint, which is where Trump is coming from, I think I would have probably just left it alone. But, Trump always moves to his own beat. What are you going to do?
Well, we're talking about blocking the Straits of Hormuz. By the way, this is James Varney, Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Investigations. We've talked about blocking the Straits of Hormuz, or Iran blocking the Straits of Hormuz, and I find it hard to believe that we can't get people through with our Navy. If anyone goes to try and bomb a ship, can't we just say that we'll blow them out of the water? Or isn't there any other company on planet Earth that would do the insurance for these guys? It seems like we're not really trying that hard to get through the Straits of Hormuz, and we really could if we wanted to.
I think that's probably right. And I think it's hard to figure out how Iran has the military capabilities left to back this up right now after what we've been doing. So it seems to me that one of two things is true. Either we actually have kind of been fighting this with one hand behind our back, and we haven't taken the steps which would be catastrophic for them in terms of their energy grid and things like this, that we probably should have, or it's as you say, and people are just, being wishy-washy about it and not wanting to force the issue, which is what I meant earlier about people that are more dependent on that energy than we are, taking a more forceful stance on this. Because if Iran really knew it was acting that alone, I think that this thing would get opened up.
Well, and then here's an ugly truth that I think a lot of people know, but they just don't want to say out loud. We probably shouldn't be changing our terms of negotiations. If the negotiations fall apart, we should just bomb this guy and start over with the next guy until we get the guy that says, okay.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I think that whenever you start something like this, and I think you and I even talked about this before, you don't know how it's going to go. Right. And you remember how Rumsfeld got mocked for saying the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But it is true that once this is all set in motion, you can never be sure exactly how things are going to pan out. I guarantee you Putin didn't think he'd still be in some grinding war in Ukraine right now after all this time.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have started it.
Right. Well, that I don't know. But I think that, especially when you're fighting somebody like this who obviously doesn't care about anybody or their own people and is willing to take as many hits, it seems, as you can give them, then you better give them all the hits you have instead of kind of pummeling them and letting them do a rope-a-dope. And then, as you just mentioned, seemingly coming with different objectives at the negotiating table. And don't forget, all the negotiations we've had with Iran in the past, I guess these are going through Pakistan, right? But in the past, like this nuclear stuff, it's my understanding that they wouldn't even come in the same room with us because we're the great Satan. So they would have intermediaries going between.
Yeah. Well, here's my answer to that. That's my answer to that. Okay, next. Can you talk to us? No, you're the great Satan. All right, now who's the leader? All right, we're great Satan still? Okay, you're going to block the Strait. Just keep doing that until we get a guy who's wearing khaki pants and a Ghostbusters 2 t-shirt or whatever the heck. I'm tired of these guys showing up looking like Jedis. And as long as there's a fella in the bathrobe on the other side of the table, I don't think we're going to get the right answer, Varnes. All right, just look, I'm out of time here, bud. Thank you for chiming in. It's good to have you. Find his excellent work, Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Investigations.com. His articles are really long and thorough and well researched, not that shallow stuff you get on the James Show. All right, hey, coming up between now and the end of the show, we're starting a new contest. This is for Kid Rock tickets. Kid Rock tickets. Yeah, his Freedom 250 tour is going to be in Dallas on May 1st. And we're going to play a snippet of his song, Till You Can't. I mean, it's actually somebody else's song, but when he covered it at Super Bowl halftime, we're going to take that. And if you hear that song between now and the end of today's James Show, and we're going to do it again on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, call in. I'm going to ask, what does this song mean to you? If I like your answer, then you will win one of the 5 qualifying prizes. Each day, Monday through Friday, someone's going to win just regular old tickets to go see Kid Rock. But one of those 5 winners is going to get the grand prize where you get it upgraded. The grand prize experience for May 1st, Kid Rock, 1 pair of premium pavilion tickets, so you're not stuck out on the grass. You also get a Kid Rock meet and greet. Let's see, what else? Limited edition Kid Rock VIP merchandise collection. There you go. And then the rest is the lawn tickets for the other 4 guys. So yeah, a lot of good stuff here. So if you hear Till You Can't between now and the end of the show, you're going to call in 800-288-9227. But it's the same number you call in for any regular phone call. 800-288-9227. Be listening for Kid Rock Till You Can't. I want to give you 2 tickets today, and one of y'all is going to get awesome VIP tickets and all kinds of merch and stuff. It'll be great. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Now, I am going to fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum of opinions on the Iran war. If I was president, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have bombed Iran. I wouldn't have started this war. That doesn't mean I think Trump's literally Hitler and destroying the country and whatever. I don't think he's distracted from the Epstein files. I think he's probably thinks he's doing the right thing and what's good for America. I also see this as a chain of events that isn't happening in a vacuum. I actually see the obvious connection between Venezuela and Iran and Cuba and China and all that. There's a bigger picture going on, and this may very well end up being something that I praise in the long run as, being earth-shaking, politically changing in history. But let's see what some other people are saying about this Iran war. First, I mean, I hate to even bother with bringing a lefty on because their opinion should mean nothing to you. If everything Trump does is bad, why do you care what they say on the Iran war? You know they're going to say it's bad. If he bombs them, it's bad. If he stops bombing them, he's chickening out. It's like, well, what is it? Is it a horrible war crime and crime against humanity, or is it something that, what a chicken? You know, so it means nothing, but let's just go ahead and give a cursory overview. Because here is Thomas Friedman. He's a writer for the New York Times who has been wrong about every prediction I've ever read this dude make. And he's saying the Iran war may have a good result. Getting rid of the Ayatollahs may actually help stabilize the Middle East, relatively speaking, but it might be a bad thing overall because it would make Trump look good.
I really want to see Iran defeated militarily because this regime is a terrible regime for its people in the region, and nothing would improve the region more than the replacement of this regime with a regime in Iran that was focused on enabling its people to realize their full potential and integrating peacefully with other countries and stop occupying Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So I'm all for that. The problem is I really don't want to see Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump politically strengthened by this war because they are two awful human beings. They are both engaged in anti-democratic projects in their own countries. They're both alleged crooks. They are terrible, terrible people doing terrible things to America's standing in the world and Israel's standing in the world. And so I really find myself torn. I want to see Iran militarily defeated, but I do not want to see these two terrible people strengthened.
That is so awful. Yeah, well, there may be peace in the Middle East, but if my political opponents are going to benefit and look like decent human beings, then it's not worth it. What kind of evil political polarization have you fallen into, Thomas Friedman? All right, so that's absolutely ridiculous because the first 27 seconds of that soundbite, it was actually kind of heartwarming. It was heartening. It's like, well, look, I know he doesn't agree with Trump, but at least he can admit that this may have some positive outcomes. It may stabilize a few arenas of conflict in the Middle East. Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthi rebels. So why would you? Oh, that just breaks my heart. All right, so let's go to a piece of criticism here from a right-winger, someone who doesn't think Trump is inherently evil and we can't say anything nice about him. This is Ann Coulter. Now, Ann Coulter is so fun when she's on your side. When she's not on your side, you can see why the other side hates her. But here she is giving the Team Red criticism of the Iran war thus far. And whether you agree with her or not, you got to admit, it makes you think a little bit more than the Thomas Friedman criticism for sure.
Not very happy with him. Not very happy with him at all. I think this Iran war is a fiasco. I thought it from the beginning, and I think it's very hard for anyone to dispute that at this point. I mean, the alleged war objectives start with knocking out their nuclear power. If anything, the rest of the world has gotten the message now, oh my gosh, we better get a nuke, develop a nuke. That's our number one goal for our entire country because who's Trump's best friend? Kim Jong-il of North Korea. And why is that? Even though he's a much more brutal dictator, he has weapons that are capable of actually reaching the west coast of the United States. But he has a nuke. So let's be really nice to him. Changing the leadership. Okay, I'll go along with the claim of Trump's that he's changed the leadership just so we can convince him, you've won, please stop now. But don't really think that's happened. The Kurds are going to help. He's going to liberate the Iranian people. None of this has happened. Now our sole war objective is to open the Strait of Hormuz, which was open before he started bombing the crap out of them. And not to mention, I think a lot of very bad things have come out of it. I'm not a pansy when it comes to war, when we need a real war. But this was an unprovoked attack, and we're killing little girls.
Which, I know she's not one of the people that thinks Donald Trump is just ruthlessly bloodthirsty killing little girls. She knows it was an accident. She knows that when you have 10,000 missile strikes and bombing campaigns, that every once in a while you're going to get some collateral damage. But she's pointing out that this is the kind of info that is going to be used to beat this guy down. There are a lot of low information people floating around America that aren't paying attention. They just get a cursory headline of the news. And if you're giving them ammo, this is going to hurt you at the ballot box. And so it feels really weird for me in this one, because I'm not as far against it as Ann Coulter is, but I'm not as for it definitely as Donald Trump is. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm an anti-war guy. I wouldn't have done this. So far, it's not, damning or a complete catastrophe. We've lost 15 guys, and every life counts, but it's not like we've lost tens of thousands of our fellow Americans. So it feels really weird for me to be in the rug section on evaluating the Iran war. There was an episode of Louis C.K.'s old show where he was asked to evaluate a rug. He was shopping for a rug with his wife, and she was upset that he didn't have a stronger opinion on the rug, but he was just trying to make the case that maybe I'm not supposed to have a strong opinion on the rug. Maybe I don't have enough information to have a strong opinion on this rug.
I don't know what I think of the rug, I'll tell you. It's fine.
It's fine? That's it. That's your opinion. That's all you have to offer.
It's a rug. It's fine. That's the level of passion that a rug warrants. It's a rug. It's not. It doesn't solve all my problems, but it doesn't make me angry. It's a rug. It doesn't smell bad. It's flat. It's blue. It goes on the floor. It's not coated with AIDS, and it's not a portal to another place. It doesn't make me, but it's fine.
The James Show Podcast.